Hello and welcome back to the WIT Misinformation Project. I'm Jessica Williamson, the North American Regional Director for the World Information Transfer. This is episode 2 of our deep dive into how to keep ourselves safely informed during this pandemic. Since China reported a new strain of coronavirus to the World Health Organization in December, numerous theories have emerged about where it came from, how it's affecting us, and how to treat it. Some claim that the novel coronavirus was manufactured by the CIA as part of an economic hybrid war against China. Some claim it was created in a lab funded by Microsoft founder Bill Gates as part of a globalist agenda to lower populations and profit off the corresponding vaccine preventing it. Whatever it is, this virus has fueled a slew of conspiracy theories, misinformation, viral messages, and hoaxes that are spreading faster than the virus itself. Misinformation communication experts are calling this information pollution. Here to talk to us more about this information pollution and why it's spreading so fast is Dr. Claire Wardle, the author of the report Information Disorder Towards an Interdisciplinary Framework for Research and Policy Making, and co-founder of First Draft, the world's foremost nonprofit focused on practice and research to address mis and disinformation. Dr. Wardle, it's a pleasure to have you join us today.
It's my pleasure.
Now, in the report, you caution against conflating information pollution with what is often referred to as fake news. Why is this?
The term fake news has been around for a long time, and we actually used to use it to describe websites that were designed to look like news sites, designed to make money. But when, let's say it was probably about January 2017, which was the first time that President Trump in one of his press conferences called out a CNN reporter and called them fake news. And all of a sudden the term got used in many places, and I just felt very uncomfortable because it was being used to describe all sorts of things. And a lot of this content that we talk about is not fake. It's genuine, but used out of context. And a lot of this stuff is not news. It's memes, videos, posts. And so it was a term that didn't actually describe the problem. And actually, it was a term that was being used as a weapon against a free and independent press, not just in the States, but right around the world. And I just recognized that language matters, and that if we use that term, it could have consequences.
So instead of lumping everything in together into fake news, how should we be categorizing this inaccurate information?
So this whole space that we are worried about, there's lots of elements to this. And so we talk about the distinction between misinformation and disinformation. So disinformation is when people knowingly create false information and spread it to cause harm. That is different to misinformation, when the person who is spreading it doesn't realize that it's false and they don't realize it's harmful. And so if you're trying to think about interventions, you would do something very different to attack, for example, Russian trolls trying to meddle in an election than you would my mom sharing something on Facebook, not realizing it's false and definitely not meaning any harm. So are we talking about conspiracies, lies, propaganda, rumors, misinformation, disinformation? The words that we use matter. And I think without that complexity, we end up just kind of talking in circles because we're not being clear enough about what we mean.
So you mentioned conspiracy theories. We are seeing a huge increase in conspiracy theories around COVID-19 being shared online. Why is this?
So the reason that conspiracy theories are so powerful is because they are simple narratives. They are stories, they're explanatory stories. And as humans, we're really drawn to that. And the problem right now with COVID is that many of us are going through unprecedented times. Many people are really struggling for work. They're worried about their families. They're losing friends and family. And in this incredible moment, we're looking for answers. And unfortunately, we don't have clear answers. We don't have an origin story of where this virus came from. And even things that we think we do know, like, should we wear masks or not? That the advice is changing as we know more about the virus. So it's so difficult for people to deal with that uncertainty. And as humans, we like certainty. So if somebody tells you this virus was created in a lab funded by Bill Gates, designed so that he could make money and that we would be all microchipped, it's ridiculous and crazy, but you have somebody behind this, you have a motivation for why they might be creating this virus, and it kind of fits neatly. What doesn't fit neatly is, reams and reams of information that we're finding all day that we can't make sense of because it's contradictory. We're unsure, we don't have clear answers, and conspiracies provide us with those.
So how can we start to clean up this information pollution and make sure that the information that we're sharing is accurate?
I would say we shouldn't be basically sending each other fact-checking articles. So it's very tempting to say to a friend or family member, you've shared this, it's wrong, this is why you're wrong. Because we have to recognize that the information that people share is connected to their identity. So when we talk to one another, we need to really not make people feel shameful about that. So it's not about shame. It's not saying it's about right or wrong. It's making people think about what are the motivations of the people like pushing this content? Is it for financial gain? Is it for reputational gain? Is it for political gain? And really talking to one another about, well, if we're not careful and we're just polluting our information ecosystem like this, we're not going to be in a good place as society. We have to be careful what we share. Like, it might seem like a mindless retweet or a share while we're, waiting for the kettle to boil. But in that time, we are potentially dropping a tiny mini weapon into our environment that actually is not helping each other. And right now, as a society, we need to be helping one another.
One thing I was looking at in your research is SHEEP criteria. Can you tell us a little bit about how the viewer could apply your SHEEP criteria?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard because all of us are susceptible to this. It doesn't matter how much education you've had. It doesn't matter whether you're left wing or right wing. We are all humans. And because we're humans, we are susceptible to information that forces us to have an emotional response. So we created this thing called SHEEP as a way to try and get people to think about some of these things. But at the same time, I just want to say all of us are susceptible to it and all of us are not as critical as we could be. But SHEEP, as in S, stands for source. Who's the source that shared this? What's the history of that source? Would they have an agenda for any reason? What job do they do? Why might they believe these things? And then evidence. So what's the evidence that you're seeing? Can you find anybody actually backing up their claims? The biggest one, emotion. So I always talk about having emotional skepticism. So if you see a piece of content and it makes you angry or sad or smug, or it makes you want to go out and buy something quickly, like it has a visceral reaction, then that's when you should be like, what's that emotion and why am I having it? So the most effective disinformation is that which forces you to have an emotional response, because when you're feeling emotional as a human, your brain is less likely to kick in. So if you have that emotional response, you should be more careful. And the last one is pictures, which is our brains, again, are more likely to slow down and read text and be critical. We are pretty bad at making sense of visuals. So again, be very aware of emotive visuals, because again, we are less likely to be critical. And on these things, you don't even have to click on it. It's there. You can share without even having to click through to another link. So that's why we see huge levels of engagement around visuals and memes and other kind of content like that.
That's great. Dr. Wardle, thank you so much for your valuable insight and coming to talk to us today, and for being on the front lines of this misinformation contagion.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you. In addition to the SHEEP criteria, the World Health Organization is leading global efforts to fight misinformation through its Mythbusters campaign, to expose and refute polluted information with facts, data, and qualified expert opinion. In April, Dr. David Nabarro, with the World Health Organization's Special Envoy on COVID-19, joined the City University of New York's School of Public Health for a series of grand round discussions via Zoom. Here's a clip from that discussion in search of the guidance like the World Health Organization provides.
We keep hearing of various drugs being proposed as effective cures, and I have to say to them, as yet there is no proven effective cure for COVID. None. There are trials underway to test whether hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine can be an effective cure, but those trials have not yet been completed. As soon as they are completed, the world will know. There are trials underway for a new series of drugs that have been produced and look very promising. But again, those trials have not been completed. So we do not have an effective treatment for COVID. And those of you who are using various proposed treatments, please remember that they have not been subjected to proper clinical trials. And that's really important. Some people have said to me, well, okay, governments are changing their guidance a lot. Doesn't that make you feel that perhaps governments don't know what they're doing? I say to them, no. Governments are changing guidance because new evidence is coming available all the time. And that's actually as it has to be, because this is a new disease. So don't get frustrated if you get different information after a few days from your government or from your local health authority, because that may well reflect changes in knowledge. The world needs an organization that is the place where public health professionals come together and where they are able to share without fear what they suspect and what they're seeing. That's the World Health Organization that I'm proud to represent, that I used to work for. Without the World Health Organization, there's no place where we can work together.
So to ensure you're sharing accurate information, make sure to follow the guidance of the World Health Organization and apply the SHEEP criteria to any videos and posts you may be sharing. For more information and resources, you can check out worldinfo.org or jhcimpact.com. This is Jessica Williamson, and we'll see you in the next video for the WIT Misinformation Project.